and welcome to Transistance, your weekly news and commentary show related to things from around the world that have to do with very challenging times right now for the transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, and intersex world, as well as the wider two-spirit LGBTQIAP+ community. My name is Genevieve Bergman, and I'm one of your hosts.
Challenging, but hopefully we can bring some light to it and bring some fun to it. My name is Emily. I'm co-host number 2.
Hi, I'm Marla. I'm the pessimist in the room. Let's see how this goes.
It will go as Transistance always does. So it will go.
That's right.
Regardless, we know it will go.
That's it.
Just like my username. All right. Let's see. Now I'm remembering something else. Cool. This is awesome. Oh, look at that. It actually is on the right thing. Oh, actually, I don't think it is. Hold on a second.
I'm so glad we started when we were ready to.
Yeah. It's always, oh, you know what? It's on the right thing. I'm just not triggered up on the right article. So that'll just be one more second.
Well, we don't want you triggered, Emily.
True.
That would be bad.
True. Especially if I get angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Okay. Of course, those who have watched this show know that I will get angry. That's what happens when you talk about
we got
crapping on
this
trans kids. We're starting off with a slew of bills. We're catching up on all the stuff that's going on in the legislature across the country. So we're starting here in Iowa and Utah as they advance anti-trans sports bills, a sort of a repetitive drum here, a dead horse that keeps getting kicked around. Jeannie, what's up in this article here?
So last week we had 3 updates on bills that are related to transgender students, specifically girls and women competing on cis female teams from K through 12, public and private, college and university. The states of Iowa, the states of Utah, and the states of Georgia have all advanced bills that would make it impossible for transgender girls and women to compete in athletics marked for females. Again, you're right. This is more of the same. This is part of the ongoing push. We saw a lot of this last year. We are seeing another huge push this year. In fact, if you go and you follow a couple of the different bill trackers, like on ACLU, Human Rights, there are a couple of places where you can actually follow those bills and you know exactly where they are in the process. The 2 other bills that we want to talk about that are a little more challenging and a little more disturbing are actually from Alabama. Both of them have to deal with things other than transgender girls and women in athletics. First of all, the House passed a bill that would ban trans students from using bathrooms and locker rooms that matched who they are, and that any attempt to use a restroom or a multi-person facility they have to bring their original birth certificate, not anything that has been legally changed through all of the legal processes. So this is an attempt to basically just keep transgender students from being able to use a public facility and using that documentation in such a way as to kind of lock that down so they can't really use even legal documents being legally recognized by the court, being legally recognized as having a gender marker fitting with who they are. It would remove any ability of those type of legal means from allowing them access. The other one is a little more problematic because Alabama is following the path that Arkansas took in creating a bill that would prohibit the provision of transgender affirming medical care to minors. This legislation it has been passed through the Senate, and it would create criminal penalties for medical professionals, and it would essentially remove the ability of medical providers to be able to provide a gender dysphoric diagnosed child, minor, with the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychiatric Association. All of those have approved transitioning treatments such as social transition, puberty blockers for anyone under the age of 18. But again, we saw Arkansas do this. It passed all the way through a governor's veto, and it was um, the Republican controlled legislature pretty much, pushed it on past that veto. Currently, it is in a federal court being challenged. And this is another state pushing another bill in that same way and will take away the rights of medical professionals from treating transgender children.
Casey Marie asks, is this the same thing that's going on in Texas?
There have been attempts to do that, but what's happening in Texas is much more egregious. It is much more inhumane. And we're going to talk about that in the second part of the show.
So I want to point out that there are in all of the ones you just mentioned, I immediately see some legal issues that I hope will sink all of these. In the case of the sports ban, the fact that they specifically made it women and not both sexes, and trans men and trans women,
right?
Trans girls and trans boys, already, like, that's going to get shot down for that reason, in my opinion, in my hope.
Right.
Because they know that if they had it both ways, they would have, at least, towards the end of high school, trans boys and trans men competing with the girls, and they're going to have a problem with that. So they want to keep it just to trans women, trans misogyny, and they want to ignore trans men just in general.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that's going to give them a legal liability in doing that. With the, what was the next one? The birth certificate one. I don't think there's any legal precedent that I never heard of any legal precedent that only your original birth certificate counts for anything. Right. It's a legal document that the state has recognized as your birth certificate, no matter when it was given to you. I don't see any way that they could go about that, because then that would apply to your birth certificate. It would completely devalue you using any corrected birth certificate, which happens all the time for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's sort of the party that's claimed to be the party of law and order that loves to ignore laws and write their own policies, ignore science, ignore legal precedent, and legal precedent a lot of times, but also the medical field. It's just they love to tout that they are all for, like I said, law and order, but then until they want to do something different, is their caveat there.
And then for the case of the doctors and medical stuff, isn't that going to run up against HIPAA?
No, it won't.
No? Why?
Because HIPAA is not a medical provision law. It is only an insurance documentation law or code. It is not going, it doesn't do anything to, HIPAA does not in any way keep a medical professional from doing something or allowing them to do something. What it does is it prevents the release of information that is protected. That's it. So if the state comes along and they says that in our state, you cannot do these type of procedures, which is why we have the abortion bills. It's why we have certain bills related to providing certain types of, shall we say, dignified endings.
Mm-hmm.
It, they can create, a state can create a bill that limits medical professionals. It doesn't in any way impact HIPAA.
Okay. Well, the other two I'm pretty sure out the window, just on those legal grounds alone. The
Right.
most egregious one, unfortunately, I don't know
Mhm.
what the answer is off the top of my head.
Well, yeah,
Well, in
and
this case, what we're looking at, especially like with the Arkansas situation, which is identical to this one, the what they're running into is they are legislating medical care.
Mhm.
They are not using medical protocols and standards to write bills. They are writing bills to change medical protocols, which is a very dangerous concept when you take a step back and you think about this. You have politicians, some of whom may have medical training, but you have politicians who are writing bills based on biased viewpoints, creating limitations for life extending medical care. And in the case of transgender youth, it is indeed life extending medical care. When we have over 50% of trans youth who have had some form of suicidal ideations, we know that providing them that care, that gender affirming care, will save their lives. So, because they have this very narrow viewpoint of rights and wrongs, which I'm going to get into in just a second with the next news piece,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they have this very narrow definition of rights and wrongs, they are willing to put minors at risk for what they perceive to be a greater good.
well, and as Marla pointed out earlier, the one bans people from performing or from playing on teams that don't match their gender. So what that's doing is that's directly discriminating against women in sports. You know,
Mm-hmm.
any of those sports, any of those schools that you go to that don't have a girls or women's sport for or a women's team for a sport, a lot of times the
Right.
girls will play on it because you know there isn't a girls version, and now
Right.
this is saying that that is illegal, which is just
Mm-hmm.
bizarre to me.
It is. It's it's illogical. It is completely rolling back everything that has been done to try and level the playfield for women in athletics back into the 70s.
Hmm. And the
So
thing that I'm
we're
most
losing about 50 years worth of advancement in women's equity in sports and college.
Mhm. And my greatest fear here is that what will actually happen is that women will fight back against this and trans folks. It won't be
Mhm.
women standing up and saying hey and getting our backs. It will be I fear that that it will be that they will be on the anti-trans side as well.
In many cases, it is. It is cisgender women who are stepping into those places because they have accepted the narrative that there are only two genders and that they step forward and they believe the lie that by allowing transgender women and transgender girls into locker rooms and to restrooms, then the transgender women and girls are essentially going to violate the privacy of cisgender women and girls, or they're going to be predatory and attack them. And therefore, they believe this narrative that has been constructed that says that all transgender women and girls are predators.
Which is, we discussed this last week. Like, the actual people in sports who are doing these awful things are the coaches and the doctors,
Yep.
the trusted people with positions of power.
Yeah.
And as Black Draco says, all of the major medical associations in the states are in favor of trans kids transitioning. They, like I said, they have proven, they have the proof that it is life-saving, it is important to do this. And the politicians are just in this biased la-la land where they're deciding that, the way that the citizens should live. And these are the same people, and I hit this over and over again on the show, that, decry states' rights and the importance of the individual people being able to decide what their, decide their fate and get government out and all that. And then they turn around and create ridiculous laws like this.
Exactly.
It's sad. Ridiculous. All right. Did we cover the Georgia one? Did we already mention that one as well? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
where are we headed?
Rick Scott. Why did that move? Senator Rick Scott says the quiet part out loud in new GOP manifesto. This is just another politician saying out loud, being brazen and having the balls essentially to say out loud, just terrible things that are part of the agenda usually, but they try and keep that on the DL so it's not too public and people don't recoil against them. What's this going to do for the GOP, Jeannie?
Okay, so Rick Scott, Republican from Florida, decided to go ahead and publish what he calls his 11-point plan to rescue America. And what he did is he published this document to stir up the Republican base and used all of the hot talking points. But for anyone who can read above a 7th grade level, he basically strung together all of the points of contradiction that exist within the Republican platform that many of them are citing. Now, we can go through the article and read them, but I went to the extra trouble of going and finding Senator Scott's 11-point plan and downloading it. And it's a very professional looking brochure. An 11-point plan to rescue America. What Americans must do to save this country. So first of all, our number one, the first thing that we have to do to save our country, our kids will say the Pledge of Allegiance, salute the flag, learn that America is a great country, and choose the school that best fits them.
Wow, everything about that sounded fascist and propagandish, and are we back in the Cold War, and what the hell is happening to this country?
Yeah. We will inspire patriotism and stop teaching the revisionist history of the radical left. So our kids will learn about the wisdom of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Founding Fathers.
This is so disgusting to it's so 1984. It's so propaganda. It's so it's every fascist country. It sounds like North Korea. It sounds like Russia. It sounds like it's just
that's what they would prefer.
Must be the perfect little soldier pawn for this country. Keep going. I'm gonna. We're getting to 11 points.
I was gonna say, Marla, that was one.
Oh God, I thought that was 2. Oh
no, that's 1, honey. Number 2, the government will never again ask American citizens to disclose their race, ethnicity, or skin color on any government forms.
But gender and all this stuff is fine.
About racism, if we ignore racism and we ignore hate, it doesn't exist. Okay, number 2, got it.
So the ending of he's, the defining point, we are going to eliminate racial politics in America. No government policy will be based on race. People will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Very nice steal from Martin
Oh,
Luther King Jr.
wow.
But here's where it gets really, really good, and he solidifies his case. We are all made in the image of God. To judge a person on the color of their epidermis is immoral. Moving on to number 3 now. The soft on crime days of coddling criminal behavior will end. We will refund and respect the police because they, not the criminals, are the good guys.
I'm sorry, did a lot of police funding get cut? Was there a big defunding that actually happened?
No. No.
Number 4 is one of
Unfortunately,
my
no.
particular favorites. I want to see how quickly we jump upon the irony of this one.
Hypocrisy, you mean?
No. It is the irony.
Okay.
Purely ironic. We will secure our border, finish building the wall, and name it after President Donald Trump.
See, this one I'm for. I am for naming every dumb policy, every country failure after Donald Trump. I am fine with that. Everything that is wrong with this country and stupid, I am totally for naming after Donald Trump. I support this.
So, here's the irony that I see in this that just proves how little the scope of most Republicans' view is. He wants to finish building the wall, name it after President Donald Trump, even though the wall had already started falling apart during his presidency. So let's go ahead and name the wall that is falling apart after the man who got the job started and didn't get it finished.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that one.
You know, one thing it never even dawned on me before until now is can we actually use like pieces from his defunct and default casinos and business failures to build it? Like instead of using American taxpayer dollars, just take the walls from his buildings and put them up there?
Many of his buildings have been torn down because he's a colossal failure. And 2, the wall, there's a ton of pieces of it just sitting out there. You would not believe how many pieces of that wall are just sitting in the desert.
Yeah. They're just wasting away.
I mean, they shouldn't be put up, but let's turn them into something good, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Affordable housing.
Number 5, we will grow America's economy, starve Washington's economy, and stop socialism.
So he wants to bankrupt the federal government?
Let's see. We will shrink the federal government, reduce the government workforce by 25% in 5 years, sell government buildings and assets, and get rid of the old, slow, closed, top-down, government-run everything system we have today.
So that's how he's going to get past the Capitol riots thing, is just to sell the Capitol?
Number 6, we will eliminate all federal programs that can be done locally and enact term limits for federal bureaucrats and Congress.
I'll do the term limits. I'll take that. It's the only thing thus far that's made any sense.
Okay, now we have hypocrisy in number 7. We've reached hypocrisy in number 7.
Wait a second, though, real quick. If we're going to limit, if we're going to impose term limits, can that include the Supreme Court, please?
Can't have that one. Sorry.
Okay.
You see, that one benefits.
Them.
It benefits because if you get somebody on the Supreme Court, they will never leave. Unless they retire or die.
Yeah, or get paid off to leave. Like certain justices have been accused of.
Yeah. Number 7, we will protect the integrity of American democracy and stop left-wing efforts to rig elections.
This is so this is so perfect. Yes. Everything that they do, they try and put on somebody else.
We're actually talking about this in a couple of news stories if we get there. So now 8, 9, I think 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all very important to us.
Okay.
We will protect, defend, and promote the American family at all costs.
What American family? Describe it to us.
I
Rick
will in
Scott.
a second. Men are men, women are women, and unborn babies are babies. We believe in science. Americans will be free to welcome God into all aspects of our lives. And we are
include that
American,
in the same
not
sentence?
globalists.
How do you include that in the same sentence?
How do you say unborn babies are babies and we're like basically there's allusions in there to like the some of the science stuff and all that, like ignoring that, like we're just going to go back down to the basics. Men are men, women are women, and unborn babies are unborn babies. And it's just like, no, that's the one that doesn't fit here, because
Yes, that's
unborn
exactly
babies
what I'm thinking.
are born a lot of times through science. Like a lot more babies would die, a lot more mothers would die without our current science. So just go ahead and pick one. Just choose one.
I mean,
So
even
here's
from a
how he
linguistic
expanded
standpoint.
on that one. Let me do the expansion, and then you can rip it apart, Marla.
Yeah.
Men and women are biologically different. Male and female, he created them. Modern technology has confirmed that abortion takes a human life. Facts are facts. The earth is round. The sun is hot. There are two genders. And abortion stops a beating heart. To say otherwise is to deny science.
So he's including God and religion in talking about science. He's literally the unborn baby thing is literally the opposite of what science says. And also, I'm just just the first three things from a linguistic standpoint alone. If you're going to say unborn babies are babies because the noun babies is there, right? That's kind of what he's inferring. Then in that case, trans women are women and trans men are men, correct? Like that's how linguistics works, buddy. That's the route you want to take, this linguistics approach. I'll take the same damn approach. Also, I want to point out that I'm going to go ahead and assume I've not quite studied this, but the people who don't think the earth is round, I'm going to say largely Republican, largely conservative, people who just don't believe in science and history and facts and professionals.
Yeah. So he stated this: humans are born male and female. There are two genders, and to deny that is to deny science.
I mean, just like, where's the intersex, people?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Science only applies if it science only applies to things that happen at the most dominance, at the largest majority. If you're not the majority, then you don't matter. You don't exist. I mean, that makes sense. That's what they do with minority groups all the time. So, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Well, yeah, and just the complete ignorance, and there's ignorance in both terms. Ignorance meaning, not knowing and sort of implying being dumb, but then also ignoring the facts of, XXY folks, XYY, XYs that are born with female genitalia, XX that are born with male genitalia, the whole gambit of things scientifically that happen regularly, that is in documents. You can go look it up. That just doesn't exist apparently.
Well, science to them is what you learned in 6th grade and nothing past it.
That's
they
right.
Don't believe in higher education.
Yeah, they always go back to that 6th grade biology, and that's it's pretty much the extent of their educational goals and achievements there.
Oh yeah, indeed. Indeed. Now, here's one that I find when they talk about family, this is the one that this one makes me cringe. No federal program or tax laws will reward people for being unmarried or discriminate against marriage. Now, listen to what he says in the process of this. Even though many single moms heroically do the job of raising a family, as my mom often had to, children need and deserve both parents, and government should not be shy about saying so. Families are
What?
crucial in raising young men and women of character and responsible members of society. The best form of governing our society is not government, it is family.
Wait,
So how are we going to enforce this?
Are we getting to the part of implying that that battered spouses should just shut up and stay in the relationship? Is that what this is getting to?
Yeah. We will stop all in 4 big letters there. Democrat Party efforts to discriminate against faith-based adoption agencies. We will do just the opposite. Most faith-based groups provide far superior service than government agencies do. We will utilize and empower them. And we've covered already on this show that there was a Jewish couple denied adoption through one of these faith-based organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
yeah,
and this goes back to the other article we covered as well about how they're trying to push for and I mean they've achieved it in rural areas where there isn't a public school or there isn't the funding for a public school. They rely on religious institutions to be the schools. And so, you know, the indoctrination into that is fine from a federal standpoint because there isn't the money to have a real school there. I said it.
Now,
I said it.
this last one, this is number 10, not the 11.
I thought
This is
you
the last
had.
one
I was
wanna
so
cover.
excited.
Huh?
I was so excited. I thought there was only one more.
Marla,
No.
we still have 2 more of these. How more
I'm not gonna do
infuriating can we
11.
get?
Feels
I
like
just
30.
want to touch on this one because this one is the worst in all of them.
Okay.
Number 10, the Democrat Party and their big tech allies are not merely secular. They have virtually created a new religion of wokeness that is increasingly hostile toward people of faith, particularly Christians and Jews. They are determined to drive all mention of God out of public view. We will not be silenced, canceled, or told what words to use by the politically correct crowd. This is all about religious freedom specifically. Americans will not be required to go against their core values and beliefs in order to conform to culture or government. We will forbid government programming from discriminating against the 350,000 religious entities that operate schools, pregnancy resource centers, soup kitchen, drug addiction program, homeless shelters, and adoption agencies.
Someone with enough money, start an agency, start a company that literally just does not cater to Republicans, cishet white Christians. See how quick their fucking tune turns.
No tax dollars will be used to pay for any diversity training or other woke indoctrination that is hostile to faith. We will stop investing federal retirement dollars with woke fund managers and companies that put left-wing politics ahead of profit.
There it is. Oh wow. He just really said it. Holy crap, wow.
And here's the kicker for me. Remember, it actually says this in the notes. Remember, the Second Amendment was established in order to protect the freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment. Folks, I am here to tell you that what we are seeing in this statement is all of the Republican talking points put into one place. If you cannot see that they have built an entire concept of fear-based politics, then we need to get you a little more remedial reading. They are the religious group. They are the ones who say that the church is being discriminated against. They are the ones who talk about loving like Jesus loved and being all about what Jesus said in the Bible. But you just heard from a Republican's own words that profit and violence are their two chosen means to accomplish their ends. They have said, fuck Christ.
All that just to literally end it with, and if you don't, guns.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not. Well, again, I'm so tired of having to use the F word. Not fuck. I'll say fuck all I want. Fascism, but it's fascism. It's all fascism. It's all fucking fascism.
Yeah.
The double F word.
So, anywho,
I mean,
I think I've left Emily dumbfounded.
The thing that's dumbfounding is how far they've made it. I mean, these sound like ridiculous religious manifestos. You know, this seems like Unabomber type of stuff. And it's not only mainstream, it's come out and it's very clear, like you pointed out, that it is the people in power that are saying this stuff. And it's just amazing to me that they can talk about the founding fathers and how we got to get back to teaching about the founding fathers, and then just ignore entirely the part about separation of church and state, which was a major thing that we've always talked about in this country, that is a core belief of this country. And yet
the thing is included the word woke so many times, just like completely
they have weaponized the word woke, just like those of us in the Gen X crowd have weaponized the word yeet.
Yeah, it's so weird how they've gotten traction in taking words that mean doing good things, being a good person, and making that a bad word.
Right. Cancel culture, holding people accountable. Cancel culture.
Yeah.
Cancel culture is my favorite. I love that one. That's just like, oh yeah, the we shouldn't impose taxes and all this stuff on the big corporations. No, like the market will correct itself. If people don't like it, they won't buy it. That's the way capitalism works. And then you say, I'm not going to buy this product because you're a bunch of racist buttholes. And they're like, "Who cancel culture? Cancel culture. Oh my God, how dare you? This is just so unfair."
All right, where are we going next?
Madison Cawthorn.
To hell in a handbasket, my dear. To hell in a handbasket. Let's talk about Madison Cawthorn. Sounds like a totally made up, or it sounds like a totally made up name. Demands Republicans be made a protected class, but not LGBT people, because the attacks against Republican people, like the things they go through on a daily basis, the fact that they're not allowed to use the restroom of their choice and to go to places and feel safe, you know, going to the grocery store. Wait, I think I'm getting this wrong. Jeannie, why don't you take this one away?
So Madison Cawthorn is a Republican representative from the great state of North Carolina. And he is demanding that political affiliation be made a protected class under federal civil rights law. This is his contract with America, and they're saying that this is the new Republican Party platform because obviously the last guys fucked that up. A GOP alternative to the Green New Deal. And it's basically just rehashing all of the Republican talking points that for years. But one of the things that he wanted to do is ensure that someone's political affiliation would be a protected status like many of the other protected classes within society. But while he is also promoting, the least among the Republican and Democrat and independents, he refuses to acknowledge the protected status of sexuality and gender, so that anyone who would identify as LGBTQ would not be allowed to have protected status within the federal government.
You can stop being an asshole, Mr. Cawthorn. We can't stop being trans. That's the difference. And that should be the end of the goddamn argument. Right. He said, gone are the days when Americans have to choose between their values and their job. Here we are back at cancel culture. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if that is what you're going to state, that they shouldn't have to choose between their values and their job. What about those employers? What if their values are progressive and anti-hate? Why should they not be protected in firing your dumbass?
Right. Emily, it is very humorous that you responded the way you did when you read the article. Just the other day, I got into a TikTok conversation with someone.
Conversation or conversation?
He made a comment, I made a video.
Oh, my favorite.
Use the power. But anyway, he came in and made I was talking about how transgender rights may not be equally observed across culture. And he said something along the lines of kind of like how Democrats treat Republicans. So I created a video where I challenged him and I said, you need to show me where a Republican was not allowed to use a restroom because there was a Democrat inside. You need to show me a bill that says that a Republican cannot participate in something just because it's a Democrat-dominated event. And I went on listing these things. It's like how many Republicans were killed just for being Republican. And that's the irony here, is that these individuals who take their political affiliation and ideation and they create some sort of religion out of it, they believe that is a protected status. Meanwhile, people who are not protected are the ones being trod upon so that they can promote their ideology. And so we've got two white guys. And you would think that someone in a wheelchair would be just a little bit more aware of how asinine and dumbass he sounds. But no.
Well, look at some of the people in the trans community even. People in all classes say and do dumb things.
Right.
There's a growing trust scum problem on this app. I just want to throw that out there. We haven't discussed it recently. I know you and I haven't, but We have to have a chat after this.
Yeah. Well, we went through that with the Transverse already in the very early days of the Transverse and the conflict that we had with trans medicalists. And it pushed us to a point where we had to make a decision. And that decision was to say very firmly the Transverse would represent transgender people across the board, non-binary people without fail, non-conforming people, even if they feel like they have to hide from themselves or from culture, as well as our intersex siblings. We would not bow to the trans medicalist agenda that only a certain diagnosable few get to call themselves transgender. We took a very firm position on that and made sure to say, no, we're including everybody at this table. And it cost us.
Yeah, we lost a very strong, important partnership, and it was a very, very easy decision for us because it's like, no, we're not going to leave any of our siblings behind. This is an important fight for all of us, and all of us deserve to be free and to feel safe here.
Yeah.
So, like I said, very easy decision, even with the high stakes. The one thing I wanted to call out in that article is the Republican opposition, the Republican answer to the Green New Deal is that the Black Old Deal, like the coal and oil, and bad pollution and all that stuff.
No, it's the old white deal.
Okay. Yeah, they wouldn't say anything that has black in it, huh? That's right.
Yeah, we don't want it to be racial.
Yeah.
Where are we going next?
We're
Marla's
same
like,
place.
okay.
We're still going to hell, just much faster.
Marla's like, why did I let my agent book me in this? Oh fuck, my agent wasn't involved.
How do my agent knows I do this?
Poor Marla. Poor Marla. All right. The Supreme Court to hear hate group lawsuit that could overturn LGBTQ protections. Holy crap. What's going on here, Jeannie?
So, like a few years ago with a wedding cake designer who refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple based upon religious grounds, we now have a Christian woman who refuses to design a website for a same-sex couple. So we've already seen some of this stuff dealt with in the past with the whole wedding cake thing. And I'm actually working on something right now that I want to do is maybe a special and talk about the people who are actually behind some of these lawsuits. But many of the paths and arguments are going to be very similar. What's very interesting about this is that the woman is not filing this on a religious rights issue. They're filing it on a freedom of speech issue.
Well, and the crazy thing, first line in the article says a Christian web designer who was never asked to make a website for a same-sex couple. Like, this is, her rights have never been infringed upon or touched in any way.
Right.
Oh, I did not catch that. She's creating her own. Okay, she's creating her own problems, and okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, I barely even wanted to touch this article because it's wrong. But seeing as the cake shop case turned out the way it did at a time when the Supreme Court was less Republican, I cannot imagine that this goes any different way. Does anyone see any way that this goes a different direction?
Or a positive direction at all?
So here is the problem with the case, I believe. First of all, the Alliance Defending Freedom group that is behind all of the legislation that we've been seeing and has been pushing through these Supreme Court cases, they are her attorneys. They said in a filing with the court that their client is willing to work with all people, regardless of race, creed, sexual orientation, and gender. But they said she, quote, cannot create websites that promote messages contrary to her faith, such as messages that condone violence or promote sexual immorality, abortion, or same-sex marriage.
Yeah, violence and same-sex marriage, very similar. Like, just, I mean, two sides of the same coin. Wake the fuck up, lady.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what they are arguing is that that the government is trying to force her to create content, even if that content violates her faith. Now, here is the significant problem with that. We're talking about web-space design. Basically, she's creating a platform for people to post their own messages. She's not creating the messages.
Oh, what?
She does website design. She's a website designer. Every website designer I know of gains the content of that from their client. She's not creating the content. The client brings the content to be included.
Well, and what is the precedent here? What is the law that is around this? Because, like, I mean, I've not done design or web design jobs before. I don't think I've really done it for any particular reason other than it just seemed out of scope or yeah, it just seemed kind of out of scope for me. But I'm just kind of curious of, like, when is the case where someone can sue or the government can step in and tell you have to do something for somebody like this. Like, it seems like in restaurants and stores and things like that, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against, you know, like same-sex couples and races and things like that. But, you know, in something like this, that's more of a private, you know, a private personal company, like, I just,
Okay.
I'm not familiar enough with what the
You're
law
digging
is
yourself a
here
hole
and how
there.
people would be forced to work with clients that that they don't want to work with.
You're digging yourself a hole right there.
Okay.
Because any private business, privately owned business, can choose who can and cannot be clientele. That was what the Supreme Court decided. Now, a public government funded program or business cannot discriminate. But because this is a capitalist nation, most of our businesses that we see on a daily basis are privately owned businesses. So this was, I mean, the Supreme Court says if you're a private business, you can determine who you will or will not serve. Supreme Court upheld that. The irony in all of that is that the Republican Party cheered when the Supreme Court decided that, and now the Republican Party is saying, wait a minute, you business owners have no right to tell us that we have to wear a mask to come into your store.
Is that where this is coming from?
No, this is going back. Okay, so let me do it this way.
It just all confuses me. We should probably just move on then.
I need a marker.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do a private session later, and you can train me on this one.
But what it comes down to is they are waffling back and forth. They're flip-flopping. First of all, they said, yay, this Christian woman doesn't have to make a wedding cake for these evil, horrendous gay people. Supreme Court says if you own a business, you don't have to serve whoever you don't want to serve. On whatever grounds. If you don't want to serve them, you don't have to serve them. Fast forward to 2020. When stores, privately owned stores, individually owned stores began to say, you cannot come into my store and shop because you are not wearing a mask. Or you cannot fly on our airline because you do not have a vaccination card. And the same people who were trumpeting that they had freedom to serve whoever they wanted to in their business are now whining, this is government oversight. This is government control. The government shouldn't be able to tell me who I should be able to shop with, when it was the store owner telling them they couldn't shop there. And now we have another private business owner who's coming to the Supreme Court to say, I should have the right not to serve who I don't want to serve. And at the same time, we have people saying, I ain't going to wear no damn mask to go into McDonald's. Even though McDonald's, a privately owned company, may say, you cannot come in here if you do not have a mask.
So they've already got their way, and they're trying to get it again the same way, while at the same time pushing back against it with masks and stuff like that. Cool.
Precisely.
Makes perfectly no sense.
Yep.
Great. Awesome. Cool. All right. GOP Attorney General demands book ban investigation. Demands book ban investigations into Of Mice and Men and other classics.
So in my glorious home state of Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain with the smell of fascism, the Attorney General of Oklahoma is currently reviewing 51 books to determine whether or not they violate Oklahoma's obscenity laws. I clutch my pearls. So John O'Connor, the Attorney General, has been getting reports from people that there are books in school libraries that are pornographic. They contain pornographic information, and we really should look into this.
Scandalous.
So he felt compelled to investigate these books. Now, I want you all to recall something very quickly here. In school, there are books that are called mandatory reading in certain classes that are mandatory, such as, I don't know, English. The Lord of the Flies, Of Mice and Men are two of the books that are being investigated. Now, here's where this gets very, very funny. O'Connor said that I think the first thing that we have to decide is at what ages our kids are ready for exposure to images that many think are pornographic. And
Everyone's
then
telling
we
me. Everyone's
also
telling
look
me
at
it.
things and decide for our community standards what is pornographic. Okay, now let's have another English lesson real quick. First, we have to decide at what age our kids should be exposed to pornography, and then we have to set the standard for what is pornography.
Well,
This is an educated man. Usually, if a number of parents are shocked that a given photo or diagram is inappropriate, that should be reviewed and they should look at removing the use of that book or whatever. The most egregious offenses come in the form of visual materials available in certain books, like photos and drawings.
so why is it just not a thing that restricts those kids from the library? Like, why don't the parents just say, my kid can't go to the library?
Because then they have to be responsible parents.
Yeah, that's true. That's a ridiculous idea.
The other what I was gonna say is a lot of the ones that they have. I don't think I discussed this last time we were discussing a book banning. A lot of the books they want to ban is just anything that mentions LGBTQ. Like if there's a family with two mothers, no good. We got to get rid of it. Just the existence of two people being together is pornography to them if it's not man woman.
Yep.
If you want to apply this fairly, I don't want to see any characters who have cisgender parents. Do not mention them to me. You must explain the book to me in a way that these characters were spewed into the universe through untraceable means. I do not like, if they're going to say that the existence of same-sex couples is pornographic and just them existing and having kids is pornographic, then the existence of heterosexual couples is pornographic too.
Okay,
I can play this game all day.
So this is, I actually touched on this a few weeks ago on Behind Open Doors. I took it from the news articles and I moved it to Behind Open Doors to actually address this. What this essentially, what the Attorney General wants to do is they want to remove anything that includes what is either homosexual or heterosexual sex. Their Senate Bill 1142, it wants to remove any books where the primary subject is the study of sex, sexual preferences, sexual activity, sexual perversion, sex-based classifications, sexual identity or gender identity, or books that are of a sexual nature that a reasonable parent or legal guardian would want to know of or approve of prior to their child being exposed to it.
See, I didn't learn a lot about sex from Of Mice and Men. Maybe I was like not paying enough attention or something. Did I miss something? Is this like a hot and steamy kind of
No.
porn book that I just missed it entirely?
Wasn't it?
Here is
wait,
where
if
the loophole is.
Wait, can you? What in Mice and Men is he talking? The only.
Give me just a second.
Okay, there's one thing I can think of.
You jump on the head of me.
Okay.
Because he said that when it comes to the written works, they could still be inappropriate even if they are not pornographic.
Oh, so now it's just whatever they want to choose regardless.
Ta-da! So he has carte blanche to decide for the entire state of Oklahoma whether or not these 51 books are to be deemed pornographic, and then they will decide the definition of pornography. I love the stunned silence that I leave with y'all.
I'm so sick of this crap. How do these people get in positions of power? I don't know how they put their shoes on in the morning.
Yeah, how did they get so high up being so poorly educated and it doesn't make any sense. It's just, I don't even know what
Marla's
it
over there
is.
sipping what looks to be a tea. It is not.
Coffee. I was this close to putting a shot in it. Maybe before we move to the other articles.
Luna, can you give her a refill?
I'm staring at the door.
So interestingly enough, somehow we ended up skipping a couple in there. I don't know what happened to the tabs here, but we did miss, looks like an overgrown Opie saying in this thing here, Delegate Les Adams, Virginia State Senate Committee kills Anti-Lgbtq religious freedom bill.
This is a good thing.
Just barely.
Okay.
This was actually from a committee meeting. It wasn't actually in the full Senate, but there was a religious discrimination bill, religious freedom bill, that was brought before the Virginia Senate for General Laws and Technology Committee. And basically, it is argued that the bill would essentially provide religious, and code word for religious is Christian organizations from discriminating within the boundaries of their operations. So, whether it came to worship places or services or any other thing that a religious / Christian group would provide, they could discriminate based on any of the identified classes. So what this wanted to do is it wanted to give them a get out of jail free card from a religious discrimination lawsuit is what it was.
If you, just like the fact that you can be like, that you can just say the words, I want the right to discriminate against people, and you're like, I'm a good religious person for that reason. I will never understand how those two ideas can fit succinctly into the same brain.
Right. Well, and this is where, the concept of religious elitism comes from. This is what we've seen. It's a cycle that we see throughout history, that at points, the dominant religion goes through this movement of elitist mentality to say that we are the defining voice for society. And therefore, we exist above the law.
Because ha ha ha, we're going to heaven and you're not.
Well, what it comes down to is the belief that they have a higher moral center than non-believers.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to the rhetoric that they spout, and yes, I am guilty of that spouting, the concept that Christians hold a higher moral ground than other religions or non-believers. And I am truly apologetic that I participated in that I spoke those things. I know better now. I know that there is no specific moral high ground, especially within Christianity, when a huge majority of them believe that faith can be upheld by firearms.
Have you seen that church that literally worships guns?
Yes. Scares
It's the
the hell out of me.
scariest goddamn thing I've ever seen.
I mean, at least rattlesnake handling, that's one thing, but guns?
Let's move to Kansas quickly. Actually, no, let's not. Let's move because this one is actually more related to what we were just talking about. The U.S. Supreme Court to decide whether it's okay to discriminate against LGBT customers.
We did this one.
That was the same one.
It is just a different article of the same thing.
That's why they're so similar.
Great. So let's move to Kansas then. The Kansas GOP targets LGBTQ politicians in redistricting battle, so we don't have a voice in government. They are redistricting to try and make sure that that the LGBT people in the Kansas area cannot be reelected. Jeannie, dive into this one.
This is gerrymandering. For those of you who don't remember your civics and history classes in early high school, gerrymandering is the concept of reorganizing lines that mark certain political boundaries. And within Kansas, we have had, well, as one person puts it, there is someone within the the government of Kansas who represents all four letters in LGBT. In fact, just 2 years ago in 2020, Kansas elected a transgender representative. So they have LGBT folks in all levels of government in Kansas. One of those individuals is Sharice Davids, who is a Democrat from, an area in Kansas, who's not only an out LGBTQ person, also happens to be a Native American woman in Congress. Now, the Republicans in Kansas are redistricting her district to ensure that she does not have the votes that she needs to continue in her office. In addition, part of the redistricting that they are going through will actually divide two areas of indigenous peoples so that it would therefore split that vote and they would not have as big a vote in speaking for indigenous concerns and representation. This has already been turned down by the governor. The governor refused to sign off on this. But there is enough Republican representation to go ahead and push it through again. So this is a problem of making, this is the problem of the LGBTQ community is going to lose representation through this.
As well as the Native American community.
Yeah, as well as indigenous people in this case.
Well, and again, she quotes here in her opinion against it when she vetoed it. It dilutes minority communities, the core of the existing congressional districts, failing to protect those, and they failed to follow proper redistricting guidelines, and then provided no justification for the deviation from those guidelines. So they didn't follow any of the rules, any of the guidelines, any of the laws, and they're just going to get it passed through. Go ahead, Marla.
I think above all else in this country, like, the two things that have to be taken care of on a federal level are gerrymandering and lobbying.
Mm-hmm.
Gerrymandering needs to go on the federal level. There need to be federal laws around it. It cannot be state by state. That literally just secures the ability of states and the people in control in those states to hold power forever. It is no different than when was it Georgia, I think, that wanted to, was it Georgia? Someone switched governors from Republican to Democrat and then went, we're going to limit everything that the governor can do before we leave.
Yeah. But let me say this, Marla and Dragomora, the thing is that gerrymandering is a necessary adaptation tool because those districts are not static lines. They are population based. And that gerrymandering was designed to provide for the fluctuation of population and the shifts that are experienced.
Not gerrymandering, redistricting.
Gerrymandering, redistricting, it's the same thing.
Well, gerrymandering is the process of doing it for political gain, though.
Right. Exactly. But it was still written in that way. I mean, that was what it was from the beginning. Redistricting and gerrymandering went hand in hand from the very beginning.
Wow.
They looked at it and they're like, oh, what are we going to do? And it's like, well, we're basically going to have to do something horrible to accommodate.
It's a lot of times the sad fact about democracy is the things that are in place to ensure that it's fair can also be used to ensure that it's not fair.
Yeah.
By basically the same methods. I was looking into it today because I have a political candidate here in my county who was railing against redistricting and actually is not running for Congress because he wouldn't win, because they just redistrict here, gerrymandering, and removed Ventura, the city of Ventura, from Ventura County in the districting and voting for Congress. And find a way to explain and justify that. It doesn't matter what population, like it's the county for the city.
Coming hard against gerrymandering, but keep in mind that if a Democratic group wanted to gerrymander to include a specific marginalized people, it's still gerrymandering. It goes both sides. So we may, hell, look, if they went and they made, certain parts of San Francisco their own voting block, the LGBTQIA crowd would be like, hot damn, we finally got a voice. But when you begin to see how spread out across the Bay Area that is, it would require gerrymandering.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it benefits one side or it benefits the other side, it is technically redistricting on a purpose, gerrymandering.
So we had talked about taking a break and jumping into some other topics a little bit deeper. We have gone really deep into all of our topics tonight, and we still have several left before we even get to that point where we were talking about breaking. We still have 5 articles. Did we want to go ahead and put a pin in these ones and move to that, or keep going here?
I say we skip these articles and take our break and then go into the important stuff.
Okay.
I agree.
Jeannie, are you're doing Behind Open Doors tonight?
Nope.
No? Okay.
I decided that if we needed the time to do this, because I think that these are major issues that we do need to discuss, that we do need to take care of. I think that Behind Open Doors can be preempted for this reason.
Great. Okay, we're going to go long today, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with y'all. And we'll jump into that fun stuff. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Transistance. Thank you all for sticking around with us. We are going to jump into some of the bigger topics now. Jimmy, where should we start?
So I want to start with the information about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Okay. Let's.
I want to start with the most ludicrous first.
Okay.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene, everybody's favorite icon of Republican voice, was speaking at the America First Political Action Conference. And I want to read what she had to say in a couple of places in her comments. She says, being truly America First means rejecting the Democrat obsession with skin color, sexuality, and gender. It means having the courage to stop agonizing over fake divisions and disingenuous allegations from our godless and gutless mainstream medium. We're going to focus on people, not labels. We're going to focus on protecting the nuclear family, our border, our jobs, and our children, on saving this great nation from the jaws of the Biden catastrophe, and most importantly, on proudly proclaiming the greatness of our God. We are not going to be deterred by journalists and Washington insiders who fear the name of our Lord and relentlessly attack those of us who proclaim his name. We know that Christ is our only judge. Jesus was a friend to sinners. We are called to follow his example. That's why I will continue to share my message of unity, family, and faith in our great nation to every corner and every group within America. Now,
Hold on yourself, Marjorie.
Well, this is today. Well, she said it yesterday. She released this yesterday, but she put this message out. Now, the thing is that she went on the Alex Jones program and made some comments that I believe show us how she wants to show the faith of Jesus Christ to those that don't fit her agenda.
Mm-hmm.
She said, first off, if I was a parent and my 5th grade daughter had to sleep and showered in some kind of cabin at some summer camp that I paid money to send my child to, and there was a man calling himself a woman sleeping in her cabin, showering with her, that guy he'd be in jail. He would be in jail. But she goes on and says, well, first off, my husband would have beat him into the ground and then he'd be in jail. And this is exactly how we need to stand up against this stuff. This is such perversion. It's also grooming children. It's grooming them to believe things that are lies and that they are completely wrong. Children are not born a certain way of thinking. They're another gender. She also had to say, excuse me a moment, that even if you don't have, oh no, this is Jones commenting on that. Even if you don't have daughters, can you imagine what it's like to have a full-grown men around the country showering with your daughters because they say they are biologically a woman? We have to draw the line in the sand and say we are not willing to cross it. So you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sitting member of the House of Representatives, admitting that transgender and non-binary people should be physically attacked. This is
go on. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, this is not her hyperbole. First off, my husband would have beat him into the ground, then he'd be in jail, but this is exactly how we need to stand up against this stuff. She is promoting violence against trans people.
I want to point out that the summer camp she is talking about, where there were apparently a number of non-binary counselors, there has been no complaint by the parents or the kids of impropriety or those counselors sleeping in the same cabin as anyone who they weren't supposed to. There's been no complaints about any of that. She has taken the fact that there are non-binary counselors at this camp and turned it into an issue that doesn't exist in order to promote violence and dehumanize, discriminate, make us look like perverts when nothing of the sort has ever even happened.
Right.
And I don't know, we mentioned this a long time ago. I railed against this. The idea that for some reason, because trans people are allowed to exist, that it suddenly means that, adults are able to shower with children and all of these like weird things. It's like, wait, where does normal law come into this? Like, this isn't, again, this isn't happening. Like you said, it's just all manufactured fear-mongering BS.
And even presenting as a boy, in my younger years, I mean, I was not at camp, but I can't imagine, I don't know if male counselors shower with young boys or not. Regardless, do they?
I can speak to this. I worked in camps. I worked in summer camps for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you exactly that within the United Methodist Church, there are prohibitions against adult leaders in the shower rooms when the youth are showering.
I figured exactly that.
Whenever an adult leader, signs up and they are, basically trained on how to go into this camp, the adult leaders are told you need to shower after lights out and the kids are in bed, or you need to get up before rise so that you can take a shower before they get up. It's standard practice. It is a standard rule. And yet, somehow, there is still this ignorance that is propagated to say that, oh no, if we're going to have an adult in a cabin with or in a space with a child, then obviously impropriety is going to happen.
It's based on what? Like I do not understand how people can hear this. I mean, I do. People fear, they hate based on nothing. They assume the worst in anyone that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So of course this is what they're going to jump to, but
Right.
if you just, I mean, we've brought it up before, just the mere fact that more Republican congressmen have been arrested for sexual misconduct in a bathroom than the entire transgender population just should be the end of the fucking argument.
I
Yeah.
would just love to have all of that court case, all of that documentation at my fingertips in any of these conversations to say, you know, amount of white Republican males in a position of power that have been proven and convicted of molesting children and, you know, accused credibly of sexual offenses and all of that stuff. It would just be really nice to have that. And then, you know, number of trans women that have done that. I think we reported on one a couple weeks ago. I'm sure there's a handful because, you know, people are just people, but there does seem to be quite a disproportionate amount of the people that seek power over others that are taking advantage of that power in very nefarious and disgusting ways that always gets looked over.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'll remind everyone that there, as far as I know, is only one current sitting member of Congress who is under investigation for having sexual relations with a minor and possibly trafficking that minor internationally. And that congressperson is buddy with Miss Taylor Greene here.
that's Gates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I loved you know, because we've been talking about all the media attacks, all of this unfair attack against the Republican, you know, against Republicans, and yet our mainstream media is apparently gutless. It's just like, which one is it? Just pick one. Are they gutless or are they attacking you? You know?
Yeah.
The what is it? The Umberto Eco quote? The enemy, we must shift rhetorical focus that the enemy is both weak and strong at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, they're weak and they need to be eliminated because they're overtaking all of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole part that I find most offensive to the trans community, the one that just tears out my heart, is saying that children aren't born thinking they're transgender. I have interviewed 80, I've interviewed 90 people, so let's see, like probably 85 of them are trans, and I have heard countless times that they knew they were transgender as soon as they could understand the concept of gender.
Yeah.
Immediately, 3 years old and even earlier. Like as soon as you can speak to say, I am a girl, there, you know, many people have had that experience. So it's just gut wrenching to hear the core truth about being about what it is to be trans being negated so just offhandedly like that.
What are you glaring at?
I'm glaring at what Casey Marie was saying.
I was trying to read that too.
I'm the loser that doesn't have Twitch open.
That's okay.
I need my other monitor.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's turned into an attack on Biden for smelling hair. I didn't I thought the people with the hair smelling was grown women. I thought that was a sexual harassment thing, not a child thing. I've never seen anything about children.
Well, the thing is that the arguments about Biden are just as fact-based as arguments against transgender women. So what they do,
not.
yeah, they conflate the entire issue of him being, in their terms, a predator, and they gain all of that together. They push all of that together in such a way that it doesn't matter who it was. That is just who he is. So.
Meanwhile, 30 some odd allegations against the former president.
Yeah, there were allegations before he was elected.
Admittedly, burst into the dressing room at the Miss America pageant.
Mm-hmm. With many underage girls changing.
With underage, yep.
Yeah. Very proudly, very proudly. Okay, are we done with Miss Greene?
Moving right along, dig-a-dum.
Okay, let's move from one just terrible person to an entire state that's extremely problematic, and move to
which
Texas.
One's it gonna be?
Texas. Texas governor directs state agency to investigate trans therapy, and basically any support of trans kids in any way, medically or basically acknowledging who they are as child abuse. Jeannie, take this one away.
Okay,
Just take it away. Just take it away, please.
First of all, let's break down the timeline, because there's an important timeline to look at here. Toward the end of last year, there was a bill that had been brought up before the legislature that would have created a law that made providing medical care illegal. It would have criminalized providing gender-affirming care to minors. And I believe that bill was struck down. Now, there were already some things on the books regarding gender-affirming care. And I think that is what the governor was referring to. But before the governor actually said anything, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, came out and basically said, as an opinion piece for the Attorney General of Texas, that any gender-affirming care would be declared as child abuse. So that fed into the governor issuing a declaration to the Department of Protection and Family Services for the state of Texas. This is the group that oversees child welfare. It's the group that oversees the foster care system. It basically oversees all of child health issues in the state of state of Texas. Oklahoma's probably not going to be far behind him, but anyhow, he made a declaration that the department was charged to go out and investigate any reports of gender-affirming care that a minor was receiving. And the parents of that child, of that minor, would be investigated and potentially prosecuted for child abuse. Now, here's the thing. In many of those cases, a child, when they have a parent who is being investigated for child abuse, will have the child will be taken out of the home and placed within the foster care system until such time as a fitting adult guardian can be named. Now, remember, Texas loses children in their foster care system. And the governor wants to empower the foster care system to absorb any transgender children who are taken from their families. Now, to go along with the abortion bill that was signed, which created bounties for anyone to turn in someone they knew having an abortion, the governor followed up on that by saying, encouraging people that if you know of a transgender child who is receiving these gender affirming cares, please let the Department of Protection and Family Services know about that. Essentially, rat on your transgender, the kids that you know are transgender, so that we can investigate their parents. Not long after Greg Abbott releases this letter, do the ACLU and many other groups step in and say, okay, before we get too far gone into this, he cannot enforce this. He cannot make this law. He cannot do this in any way to see to it that, the DPFS actually goes through with this. Some county district attorneys came up and said, hell no, we're not doing that. Even the DPFS has come out and said, look, there's no guarantee that we're going to follow through on this because the AMA, the APA, the AAP has all said that this is the appropriate method for treating gender dysphoria in minors. So there is this issue of the governor declaring something that is completely void of power. He can't do anything to enforce this mandate that he sent to a state department. But that's not the point. The point was never about enforcing a law. It was about creating a mentality in the community.
A hostile environment for transgender folks.
Exactly.
Particularly kids. Does it get any more disgusting than attacking kids and threatening to remove them from their parents if they come out and live as themselves?
Right.
Does it get any more terrifying for a child?
So,
go. Do you have to finish the whole thought? I have a few things already.
okay. I want to share what one person interpreted this as. And these are different scenarios. You're the single mother of a 14-year-old transgender boy, and you have sole custody from your abusive ex-husband. He demands you revoke your protection from abuse order and cancel your child support agreement, or he'll report you as a child abuser. What do? You begin dating a boy and confide with him that you're trans. He threatens you and says he'll report your family unless you do what he says. What do?
Mm-hmm.
You're the mother of an 11-year-old trans kid in Texas. One of your child's classmates caught COVID, and now your kid has a fever of 102 and a hacking cough. Do you take them to the ER knowing the nurses may report you as a child abuser? All of these are possibilities. Now, here's the thing. We are doing this tonight for one very clear purpose: to put in the hands of people real, factual information. The governor cannot do anything the Texas Department of Protective and Family Services cannot do anything to families with transgender minors. You do not have to be afraid of the government in Texas. What you have to be afraid of are ideologues. People who hold to the ideology that is fueled by Greg Abbott's political gain. He wants to buy it through the blood of transgender kids. That is where this has to stop. That is where we have to put this information out. Let people know Greg Abbott is impotent when it comes to this statement. He can't do a goddamn thing about this. But if he puts it in the hearts and the minds of people that transgender children are being abused, then the DPFS is going to be inundated with these reports. If you are in Texas, if you know somebody in Texas, if you care about anybody in Texas, give them this information. Let them know that they have a legal leg to stand on. This does not have to happen. Sorry, Marla.
No, I was just gonna say there might not be legal ground for him to stand on, but I have already heard from at least one person on TikTok of CPS contacting them to be like, are these kids okay? Like, sort of like to harass them. So whether the DAs are doing it or not, CPS to some extent is using the governor's order to harass and scare people.
Yes, absolutely. Which was the entire point.
But like Jeannie said, I've never feared for my life or my safety from the government in a truck stop in rural Texas. That the government is not where the danger is at.
Yeah, that's a really good point. He's just giving those people, he's validating hate. He's validating people who are going to murder or assault us.
Mm-hmm. He might as
And
well
that's
be
right.
handing out pitchforks and tiki torches.
And that's why, if you are in Texas, you stop at Buc-ee's, not truck stops.
I'm gonna nod my head and assume I'm like not a clue.
If you know, you know, Marla. I'm sorry. Those who are from Texas know what Buc-ee's is. Those who have been in Texas knows what Buc-ee's is. And they will say, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I still didn't feel super comfortable in Buc-ee's. There's just so many people in there. And it is still sort of a truck stoppy. It's on a ridiculous scale, but I still in that restroom I still didn't feel super comfortable.
Is it like a Love's?
Okay, Marla, imagine for a moment that a Love's and a Walmart Supercenter had a very romantic evening with a lot of wine and candles. And then that offspring of that wonderful night was put on steroids. That's Buc-ee's.
I didn't think someplace to get gas could get bigger than a Love's.
Oh, sweetie.
The wall of beef jerky alone will blow your mind. Like just that one small subsection, and they sell thousands of products from. But they sell house goods. Like you can get your dish towels there. Like it's crazy.
With Bucky the Beaver emblazoned on them.
Well, yeah, they sell all the merch, but then they just sell like nice looking housewares. It's like part Target, part like you said, grocery store, part I don't know. It's an interesting experience. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, going back to the article. I
was gonna say, we got a little off topic, just a tad off topic, maybe. Go ahead, Marla.
Did this memo specifically say what they consider to be gender affirming care?
Puberty blockers.
But did it specifically say medical?
Yes. Just a moment.
I believe I did see. Yeah, it basically covered everything because I thought like it seemed like he was talking specifically about medical procedures again, the stuff that isn't actually happening. Another completely manufactured boogeyman But then he does actually mention both hormone blockers and hormone treatments. That there was some word that I'm just like, oh, that means like, contrary to what your body
Yes, and we
creates
know that
naturally.
hormone treatments are not administered. 18 generally, 16 at the absolute earliest.
Mhm.
Right.
I also want to. I just want to. I recently saw someone's TikTok who I'm gonna make a whole long thing about. I don't even like have the energy for it right now. It's so long and stupid. But trying to pass around this idea that puberty blockers make you infertile,
Mm.
and that's not the case. Puberty blockers can make you infertile if you then later go on to gender affirming hormones.
Right.
That just like any of us that go on gender affirming hormones. And again, those are not administered generally until you're 18, until you're an adult. So this idea that these kids are going to regret the puberty blockers because they're going to be infertile is nonsense. One, they're completely informed if they go on to hormone replacement therapy that that is a possibility. And two, the puberty blockers themselves do not cause that. I
Yeah.
want to clear that up. I spent the whole morning looking for it.
What it specifically says is that it is already against the law in Texas to subject Texas children to a wide variety of elective procedures for gender transitioning, including reassignment surgeries
Doesn't
that can
happen.
cause sterilization, mastectomies, removals of otherwise healthy body parts, and administration of puberty blocking drugs or supraphysiologic doses of testosterone or estrogen.
Literally, the only thing on that list that exists with people under the age of 18 is the puberty blockers, which are, again, completely reversible.
Right. And because it could be argued that when he just says that any elective procedures for gender transitioning, it's going to be really hard to balance puberty blocking drugs for trans kids and puberty blocking drugs for precocious puberty.
Yeah.
Because that retards the development of sexual organs, which is essentially sterilization. So I wonder if Governor Abbott is basically saying that 8-year-olds cannot have puberty blockers. Because it's very generally prescribed for females between 8 and 12 because they have precocious menstruation.
So, Jeannie, what's this with the follow-up articles that we have here? Maybe this is a little bit of a positive note on this, that Texas District Attorney point blank refuses to support un-American attack on trans kids. Of course, I don't know where the term un-American is coming from, but what's going on here? Is this a positive angle to part of this?
It is a very positive angle because this is where I said that there are, as of the writing of this article, February 25th, there were 5 district attorneys who came out in the state of Texas, and they said they would not participate in investigations of trans affirming care. because they recognize that these district attorneys in these areas recognize that this is a legitimate medical procedure that is backed by science. It is backed by facts. It is backed by all of this other stuff, which is why the AMA endorses it. It's why the AAP, the American Association of Pediatrics, endorses it. It's why the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, endorses it. So all of these recognized medical professionals have said this is the thing that must be done for minors who experience gender dysphoria. And so these district attorneys are like, no, we're not going to investigate this as child abuse. It is a recognized medical procedure.
So as Kari points out, it's basically like a big smoke screen to cover over the fact that they're trying to ban or criminalize the one thing that actually is done, is proven, is scientifically defendable, that is a treatment done for kids.
Nope. Worse than that. All political analysts agree that Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott both released these statements back to back in the same week because Ken Paxton was being investigated for wrongdoing in his role as Attorney General, and that Greg Abbott was having to deal with the fact that Texas was facing another freeze, and for some odd reason, the electric grid had not been upgraded since the last time they had a freeze and the electric grid went down.
Wait, what? They're not taking care of their infrastructure like they promised they would, and made fun of Californians for having some issues during the fires? Yeah. Like, wow, how surprising.
Yeah. So this was all distraction technique to get people off of the idea that they have not done anything to support the state, but they generated a fear target in transgender children so that they could throw the attention off themselves. Yeah, I do believe that there have been some issues about price gouging on utilities also.
In the end, though, and I keep saying this, I want to make sure that people do not shrug this off as simply he's doing it to divert and this will be over. He has moved the needle to make this acceptable for someone to do the same or to go further.
Yes. This is... So the bill that did not pass through Texas, we have not seen it crop up on any other states yet. This is a test case. My guess is that the ADF has pretty much given Greg Abbott the freedom to be able to do this, just to see if they might be able to replicate this in other states. Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind. Marla's right on. Other states are going to try to do this, especially if they see results. Mm-hmm. If they can get 4 or 5 parents on a child abuse charge trumped up around gender affirming care, doesn't even have to be for gender affirming care, but if they went in to investigate on that report, because they have to follow up on a report, and they find reasons to, which strangely enough, it's Texas. People find reasons to do a lot of things in Texas. So, if they can get a few case examples, they can promote this across the country.
Moving across the country, well, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Jump.
but I'm moving across some country. Let's go to another wonderful state politically, Florida, and a bill that actually has me a little bit confused again there. I'm very happy to have Jeannie here to explain this one to me. Florida lawmaker pulls cruel "Don't Say Gay" amendment requiring schools to forcibly out students. Pulling that amendment sounds very good. What's the whole basis behind this "Don't Say Gay" thing, and what does this particular article bring light to?
So, Florida had constructed a bill which would essentially remove any discussion of gender or sexuality from grade school up through middle school and possibly into high school by basically saying that the subject matter of gender and sexual orientation had to be appropriate to the setting in which it was being discussed. And under a certain level, it should not be discussed at all. We don't say gay. That's where the name, the nickname came from. It's that, schools were no longer going to be allowed to talk about gender or sexual orientation issues. And that meant that many kids who were in a place where they had no one to talk about it, they couldn't talk about it at home, many of them would find safe teachers, but now that would be canceled. They would not have access to teachers who would be compassionate and listen to them and validate them. So that bill was brought forward. In the process of debating that bill, something was added. An amendment was added which would force teachers that if an LGBTQ plus kid admitted that they had understanding of gender divergence or sexual orientation divergence, that teacher was required to inform the parents through the school system, even if there was a risk of violence at home with regard to that outing. Meaning that if there was a threat of violence, an actual case of child abuse in that home, and the teacher knew that that was a very real probability for that child, they were still required to report it. So that measure, that amendment, was withdrawn before it could be voted on as a full bill, which left the Don't Say Gay bill in its intended form, which was basically you can't say anything about, it would ban classroom instruction on sexual orientation completely in kindergarten through third. It would restrict educators from teaching about the subjects in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. That bill passed, and it is moving along the line to basically go through the Senate and see if it can be pushed up to the governor.
And not only did it pass, but I don't know if you saw that, but it passed by a margin of 69 to 47. It passed pretty strongly, significantly, yes.
Yeah, it passed very securely. And I mean, this is where, there is, people are saying, look, Florida, don't do this. Well, now, we've had a lot of stars that came out to talk about this. We've had a lot of famous people come out to talk about this. But now, Florida may be facing some repercussions they didn't want to. Because businesses such as Marriott, Hilton, American Airlines, Airbnb, Amazon have all said they stand in opposition to this bill in Florida. Many of these places have already kind of made a decision to say when Florida or anywhere else does something stupid like this, they limit expansion into those areas. Now, the thing about Marriott, Hilton, American Airlines, and Airbnb, Florida is a destination location. And those cut at the very jugular of Florida's lifeline. If American Airlines says we're not gonna put any more flights into Orlando International, or Airbnb says we're not gonna actually, certify any new locations, I mean, that is well within their ability to say, sorry, Florida, we're not supporting this. There's also one other bill that is coming up, and it is the Stop Woke Act.
Again, if you include the word woke in it, I immediately know it's going to be stupid.
It is basically the same thing as the Don't Say Gay bill, but it also includes critical race theory. A full perspective on history. Anything that would deal with marginalized people. It basically would say you cannot talk about any of those things.
I just, first of all, going back to the businesses walking out thing, these are my couple hopes right now. The businesses walking out thing is what sunk them in North Carolina with the bathroom bill a few years ago.
Yeah.
Hope number 2, and I know this one's a Hail Mary, that they get so greedy, like they did in, I cannot remember where it was. We talked about it last week. That there was an amendment to one of these kinds of bills, and when it moved to, and it went, not cruel enough. No, we want everything, and it failed.
Yeah.
That's my Hail Mary hope. Number 3 is if it passes, the teachers just walk the fuck out.
Well, my friend Nadia over here on Instagram reminds me, and this is pretty much common in many places, that if a teacher has a reasonable concern of child abuse, that teacher is required by law to report that to Child Protective Services.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's mandatory. If a teacher believes that there is a reasonable expectation that one of their students is experiencing child abuse, they are required to turn that in. Thank you, Nadia, for reminding me on that. So this is one of those cases, all right, go tell the parents that their child is out, but do that the week after CPS comes in there to see if there's any abuse allegations that can be confirmed. Because if there is a reasonable expectation that violence is going to happen, then that reasonable expectation of violence is already there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, should we move out of this country and get into, and just move across the world here to our next big topic?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. Russia plotting to kill LGBT plus Ukrainians after invasion, U.S. whistleblower claims. What's going on here?
Okay. We all know that Russia has made an unprovoked attack on the sovereign nation of Ukraine. Ukraine split off from the Soviet Union in the 1990s and established themselves as an independent nation under their own sovereign rule. Russia was always a little cranky about that. But the thing is that no one was really going to do anything about that because Russia was trying to, gain some sense of validity among the European community. Vladimir Putin comes in and is like, I'm the one in charge. We're going to do things my way, and has been all along. And so he ordered the military to push into Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is the deal. According to a U.S. official under the protection of anonymity, there was a hit list that was developed by the Russian military that would target certain political opponents, anti-corruption activists, and vulnerable populations such as LGBTQ plus leaders within Ukraine. And when this was discussed, he said among Russia's list of likely targets for killings, kidnappings, forced disappearances, detention, or use of torture, there are Russian and Belarusian dissidents in exile, journalists, anti-corruption activists, as well as religious and ethnic minorities and LGBTQ plus people. There have been many statements that, one of the sort of minor unspoken or minor spoken reasons for pushing into Ukraine was that Russia wanted to basically reinstate a proper ideology, in the sense that they believe Ukraine to be a more westernized, influenced, and decadent country that allows LGBTQ plus people to have influence within the society. So Russia wanted to go in and stamp that down. In the wake of all of this news, the LGBT plus community in Ukraine has basically been coming out and saying, look, we're not going to tolerate this. We are not going to be targeted by these people. We are not going to go down without a fight. And so the Kyiv Pride group sends out a message and says, look, you can come at us, but you're going to run up against us, and we're not going to back down. So they're not intimidated, but at the same time, you have the Russian military given the okay to target certain individuals, and some of those are our queer siblings within Ukraine.
This really does say to me that this is not just a normal war. This is not simply about him wanting land that he thinks belongs to him. This is a fight he is bringing to harm, delegitimize, humiliate the Ukrainian people and their beliefs and their systems and their identities. It is not as simple as this is my land and I want it.
or that Ukraine was showing aggression towards Russia with their military exercises. Wasn't that one of the early claims?
I'm sure it was.
There was that. There was also the claim that Ukraine was stockpiling nuclear weapons.
The thing that's scary for me is that this doesn't smack of Hitler and the Nazi push. It is starting to sound exactly like it.
Well, it's why I keep saying. Somebody the other day said to me, they were like, "It's just Russia invading Russia," which I think is just nonsense. But
Never say that to a Ukrainian.
I know. I was horrified that someone said that to me. That I know. Like, this is not some random stranger on TikTok. And the fact of the matter is, he is also testing NATO's strength and willingness to stand up to Russia. He's going after a partner nation, not a member nation, but a partner nation, and seeing what will happen. Because if he does that, next he can try it on a member nation. And at this point in time, it seems we have decided to do precisely what was done with Hitler and be like, well, let him take it and maybe he'll stop. Oh, cool. My live just got taken down for hateful behavior for saying Hitler.
Oh, sheesh.
Or was it for talking about Russia?
Yes. As if it isn't a one-to-one comparison at this point when you're talking about attacking minority groups. And the things they're doing over there are just insanity. It's just insane. The thing that shows you like how serious is when China is just like, ooh, yeah, we don't agree with this.
Yeah. There are a few things to keep in mind. This is not an Eastern European issue. Serbia is looking to pull out of the pact that was signed after the Serbian-Croatian War. Serbia is affiliated with Russia. We could be looking at an expansionist move on the part of Russia, hoping to reclaim many of the former Russian states, Soviet states. But what we have to worry about right now is what's happening here. We all know that Fox News is the voice of the agenda that is pretty much trying to eradicate us. Right now, Fox News, in particular, Tucker Carlson, and then Matt Walsh on his platform, are essentially saying that it is wokeness and trans rights that are behind Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That was Chechnya.
Now, if that's not delusional, I have no idea what is.
So, let me see here. So, yeah, they are both coming. I mean, Fox News through Tucker Carlson and Matt Walsh are basically saying, look, this advancement of wokeness, this advancement of social justice push and trying to bring out transgender rights to everybody who is transgender and providing equity. That is what was behind the push. That was what was basically giving Russia the impetus to go into Ukraine, because Ukraine was influenced by wokeness and trans rights. Now, I don't know if anybody was following the Freedom Convoy or whatever the hell it was.
In Canada?
Right. But now it's in the US.
Correct. Going through New Jersey, I believe.
Right. But it went through just north of me on I-44 in Springfield, Missouri. I happened to catch a live from the side of Interstate 44, listening to some of these freedom patriot people talking about this, and listening to the rhetoric that was being tossed out. We saw it with Marjorie Taylor Greene in that news item at the top of this segment. We saw it in the 11 points. We see it in this, new Republican platform. This is all very much playing the same tune when it comes to transgender rights. And my thing is, the thing that I have always pushed for through this platform, I'm great at talking. Okay? I'm really great at talking. But I am just one voice. Many of us here in the US have become so acclimated to political indifference. We've gotten used to it, to the point that we let things go because we say, well, I won't make a difference. Those days are done. Those days have to stop right now. Marla, you have said it yourself. If they come for one of us.
Oh, am I finishing it?
Oh, you are.
They will come for all of us.
Marla and I have both been muted on TikTok just because we try to raise awareness. We cannot afford to be politically apathetic anymore. We cannot be in a place where we sit back and say, well, it's somebody else's responsibility. No, it isn't anymore. This is our fight. This is our responsibility. We have to start stepping up because nobody else is going to step up for us. And those who do step up, they're going to burn out. Marla and I had this conversation earlier.
I'm tired.
Yeah. It happens so fast. For somebody to take the position of being an activist, for somebody to take the position of being a voice, we burn a lot of energy in that. And it gets tiring quickly. We burn out quickly because there aren't enough of us out there saying, this is what's going on. I am so grateful that Emily allowed me to force her into this program. because this is one of the most influential tools to get this message out. If you don't want to do the work, then share this program. If you don't feel like you can do the fight, share it with your local organizations. Let them know that there are voices that want to be heard on these issues. If you have the power, step up into it. There are already organizations where you live. There are activist organizations, there are political action groups, there are people who are already doing the work. You don't have to start on the ground. You can jump in on something that's already gotten started. Dragamora, you can still do something, I promise you. I know you're in a conservative area. I'm in a conservative area. I can still do something.
Every place has these groups. I mean, I know I'm in New York City, but there's places that are outside of your area that you could even do stuff for remotely. I currently had a long talk with the AVP about stuff that I would like to do and how I can provide my services. There's stuff out there, even if you can't do it in person.
If you can access this program, you can send emails and letters. You can make an ass of yourself, a nuisance, such that if your representative happens to come through your area this summer to one of the 4th of July things where they go around and they stump for anything, if you've made yourself so much of pain in the ass, all you got to do is walk up and say, hey, you know me. Guess what I want to talk about? Yes, you can volunteer remotely for the Trevor Project. You can volunteer for suicide hotlines. You can volunteer for so many other things that are out there. And everybody needs help. Everybody needs assistance to make this happen. Sign up with your local ACLU. Let them know that you're willing to help them if they're in the area doing something for promotion, for handing out flyers. Check out your local Human Rights Commission. See what they're doing. Annoy your politicians. Talk to the people who are in schools that you know are supportive. Let them know that you support them. Do what you can to make it visible that we are not going to hide, that we are not trying to be some cowardice group that's going to hide behind profile-less pictures and anonymous names. I understand if some of you are not out. I get that. I don't want you to risk your life in the midst of this. But if you are standing out proudly, this is something we have to do. This is something we have to fight. We already know that some of our gay and lesbian siblings are not going to support us.
Yeah.
We already know that they're trying to pull the L and the G away from the T. So we can't count on all of them. And we can't count on all of our trans siblings. Because we've already talked about trans medicalists and the problems that they have brought into light. They don't support all of us. But we, right here, the Transistance team, the Transverse crew, We want to make this fight real. We want to let people know they're not alone. So share it. If somebody is lost, share the Transverse with them. If somebody says, I don't know what's going on, share Transistance with them. Do what you can do to, like I say at the end of all of my lives, do something that you can do just a little bit to change the fucking world. Because right now there are too many people who want to change the fucking world so that we're not included. So let's tell them that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and it's one of the, I mean, there are so many reasons to be so proud for having created the Transverse and what we're doing. You know, my focus has always been, my focus in starting it, where I originally came from, is from an individual perspective, helping the individuals. And I find a lot more energy in that, because when you're helping individuals to accept themselves, to come out, and to, you know, basically to find family, to find a community where they can actually finally be themselves, even in those instances like you mentioned, Jeannie, where people can't be out yet, or, you know, they don't have any of the resources, they don't have the support, they can find that here. And I love that. And the great thing about that work is that it's so invigorating. You know, like you said, the external work in changing the world is really tough, and you're fighting against a lot, and it's really hard. Focusing on the individual is so invigorating, because when somebody comes out and gets to be themselves, like, the joy, the love, everything is wonderful. And I love that's still a core of the Transverse. But you know, as we move forward, it's imperative. And I love, you know, having people like you involved in it. But, you know, I loved your yin to my yang in it, of the, well, let's change the fucking world, let's go out there and make and screw some things up, let's make things challenging for people, let's get in people's faces and actually make the difference. And now, as we're registering as a nonprofit, you know, that's something that we're looking to do very soon, and we definitely need help with that. Like I said, I'm not that type of person, but I've found a way to make an impact and to build something that can have that impact, even though that's not at my core. And so we need those people that have those ideals and have the ideas and the drive to work on these projects and to create these things with the support of a team like the Transverse. So definitely, like, yeah, get involved with the Transverse, contact us, bug us, share with us your ideas, and let's do some of this external stuff and start fixing some of this crap.
Yeah,
I love it. Marla's been awful quiet. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's everything I said the other day. Just support the trans people you know, especially if you're an ally. If you're trans and you are safe and you are in a position where you can help other trans people, do it. You know, we can no longer rely on society. I mean, we never could, but now more than ever, we can't rely on government and society to do what is right and fair and equitable and humane. We just can't expect it at this point. And sitting by idly is just going to end up with us all in a very dangerous and a very bad place.
yeah.
Everyone has a gift or something that they can add to the fight, no matter how small. Just use it.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we have about 15 minutes left. Was there more on Ukraine or Russia that we wanted to check in on, or?
No.
Interesting. The last article, Midvani had mentioned Chechnya before. I just saw that the last article was the Chechen warlord who assisted in anti-gay purge was killed in Ukraine.
Yeah.
What's the best way to contact us in a pinch? The Discord is all. I run the business out of the Discord, and I'm always in there. So DMing me on Discord is the best way to get in touch with me. You can also reach me at emily.kleckner@thetransverse.net. There are a couple ways to reach me. Discord is usually the best. So if you type, and I'll type it in here for y'all. That will get you to the Transverse Discord. Once you've joined up there, then you have access to everything that we provide as far as community, everything that we're working to provide for resources, and of course, direct access to myself and my team. My DMs are always open. So I know there are several here in the chat that have we'll get to that in a second, Jeannie, whatever that was. But yeah, there are several in chat here that take advantage of that and have, have reaped the benefit of the direct contact with me. And that's something that as long as I can, I want to make sure that I have open to anybody in the Transverse. So hit the Discord. Glad you joined already. And yeah, hit me up. Jeannie, what was that thought? Do I even want to know at this point?
I think you know very well what that look was for. Especially if you go back and you look at the timestamps on DMs that I send you. And the lag.
Literally today. Literally the entire day today. You didn't come into existence until 6:30 tonight.
There's room for improvement. Maybe saying you have direct access to me. You have direct access to my direct message box.
Yes, I do.
Which I often respond to.
Eventually.
Good. Glad we could end on just getting completely dumped on me. That's great. That's great.
Hey, look, here's the thing. You had an entire year to get tired of me. So, there you go.
I love the implied, not the implied, but the felt, the personally internalized intent behind my lack of response to a text message today. I love you, Jeannie. It's more fun.
I love you too, Emily. We love you both, Marla.
Oh, thank you.
Marla's about to fall asleep on the couch.
No, Marla's not.
I know, baby.
This show definitely has a way of taking the last bit of energy from the night, doesn't it?
I don't know. I got charged up, so.
I don't know how.
What's funny is what I found is I can go into this charged up and excited about the show. We get about halfway through and I am just like kind of bummed out and feeling just like the weight of the world on my shoulders. And then by the end of it, like I feel juiced up again. I feel like we've done something here. We've, illuminated some important things and found a way to make it positive. Just in our resilience.
I'm kind of, when on some of these, I can agree, but there are some nights when I'm kind of like the Hulk. The angrier I get, the stronger I get.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like whenever something is just really, really just in my craw, it drives me to a fever pitch of trying to do something. And that's kind of where I am tonight. We talk a lot about intersectionality on Behind Open Doors and in the work that I do with Angela Locascio. this stuff all coming together at the same time is not happenstance. This stuff all coming together right now, it may not be orchestrated, but it is intersectional. It is all feeding off of each other. That's why I think it's important to recognize, what does Fox News say about transgender people and what's happening in Ukraine? You know, why is it important to know about all of these itty bitty little events in states that are all across the country? Because all of them add up to creating a picture. It is a mosaic of what is happening everywhere. And the picture is getting filled in very fully. So whenever I say that the movement right now to remove transgender people from the public sphere, that's the mosaic. That is the picture that is being crafted right now. And I know there are a lot of people who say, no, you're just being a whack job, and you're not really seeing what's really happening. No, I'm looking everywhere and seeing what's happening. I'm just not focusing on the ground right here in front of me. I'm looking at the wider picture. One of the reasons why I do what I do the way that I do for Transistance, I want to see what's the picture around the world. We didn't talk about it, but Singapore rejected a ban, or rejected an appeal on getting rid of the gay sex ban, meaning that Singapore decided they wanted to keep gay sex criminal. How does that relate with here? Well, we have states where people who were gay under those laws in the US who are still on the sex offenders roll, even though it has been decriminalized.
Mm-hmm.
That puts us in almost the same boat as Singapore in that regard. When we begin to look at these bigger pictures, when we begin to look at everything that's happening at one time, they all have to be accounted for at the same time. We can't just say, well, that's over there and that's over there, and this is just right here, and things are okay where I am. I am blessed to be living in what is considered the liberal part of Arkansas. I have friends all around me who are from all over the world right here. But the bubble that I'm in is very porous, because there are people from right outside the bubble who get to come into my bubble. There are people who aren't liberal, who aren't progressive, who aren't trans affirming, who come into my bubble and make their presence known. And some days, it's not worth it to go out anymore. Some days, you have to. Because the world needs me here. The world needs us where we are. It's time to take it back. It's time to tell the church and white Western Christianity there's more than two genders. God didn't create them male and female. God created a mixture and diversity of people, and it's time to get over your ideas of superiority.
I don't know. Considering we can't convince them that there's more than one religion, I don't know about anything the other parts.
True. Well, anywho, y'all better get me off my soapbox.
Yeah, we better get off the downer thing. We're wrapping it up here, and we gotta find a way to end on a positive note. Mark,
Great. I'm just gonna take this time and remind everyone that this weekend, the 5th of March. First of all, let me mention my HRT anniversary is the 4th of March.
Yay.
So, Friday. So, as a gift to me, you can show up on the 5th of March
mhm.
for Nonstop Coal Pop's HRT anniversary and the charity stream that she's putting up that starts at noon on Saturday. 24 hours, all your favorite trans creators. I'm doing a D&D one shot. This is all in Eastern time, by the way.
Noon
I'm
Eastern,
doing
yes.
a D&D one shot. I believe that's at 5 p.m. I'm doing a citation needed type thing, and I think that's at like 3 a.m. or something like that. Probably some Jackbox games here and there. All your trans creators are going to be there throughout the 24 hours.
I'm
I
not.
think. What was that?
I'm not.
I'm sorry. Um,
So it's not all. It's not all means y'all, does it, Marla? No, it
no,
doesn't. You
no.
get to be on there, but I don't get to be on there. So,
I could have been on there. I didn't find my spot. Didn't find a spot in there.
but no, I I am very excited for it.
Yeah.
I am going to be there because I got a sneak peek of some of the outfit that will be worn.
um, I think we're still on Planned Parenthood. I have to check. There was discussion of doing something more Texas based, but I don't know if we actually got there in time. But it will be going to organizations that benefit trans people.
Excellent.
So yeah, show up, or I'm never going to speak to you again.
Wow. Harsh stuff.
I put it in the chat so everybody can go and follow Nonstop Coal Pop. They were a guest on the Transgender Show not too terribly long ago. They're amazing. They're a wonderful partner. Like I said, I wasn't able to find myself a spot in their lineup. They're doing a lot of stuff. Most of it gaming stuff that's sort of outside of my normal purview. But definitely going to be there for as much of it as I can, and definitely go check that out because whichever charity they decide to support, either Planned Parenthood or something in Texas, obviously it's very important. So yeah, go support our girls and all the other trans folks, but particularly our good friends Cole and Marla, who have their HRT anniversaries there. So many good reasons to show up. So many bad reasons not to. With that, I think we can go ahead and call it a show. Hopefully we'll see you all there on, you said it's on the 5th, which is Sunday, correct?
Saturday into Sunday.
It's Saturday to Sunday, starting at 12 Eastern, 12 noon. So join in. Love you all. Thank you so much for a great night. Ladies, wonderful show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see you all very soon.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.